Good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone, whenever you may find yourself watching this. The first show of 2022 for the Hardware Podcast. I'm Omar, excuse me. Start off with a funny start. Of course, with my good friend Jackson. Jackson, how was the holiday season? How's the new year treating you so far?
Oh man, it was great. Besides some not so great New Year's Eve football, it was fun. It was fun. Omar, congratulations! You went to the best bowl game on the day of the playoff, the Sun Bowl. Man, I mean, gosh, it was a great game. And little did we know. I think we all saw that coming with Cincinnati. I don't think any of us saw it coming with the dominant win by Georgia. But yeah. That was a great time. Looking forward to the FCS championship and national championship. It'll be a lot of fun.
So I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit here. So New Year's Eve, I think, showed everything that is good versus everything that's wrong with college football in the first place. So everything that's good, I'll start off with the good, of course. Be positive. You have two teams appearing in bowls that they normally would not have appeared in, and really just program defining moments. You have Rutgers being called up from vacation, 5-7, playing the ACC runner-up in the Gator Bowl, their most prestigious bowl of all time. Before that, probably their best bowl they've been in is either the Pinstripe Bowl or the Camping World, Champ Sports, Russell Athletic, that other Orlando Bowl. So that's one good aspect. And of course, you mentioned too the Sun Bowl, Jackson, with CMU being the first MAC team to play since 1962, and then just going out and beating a good Washington State team, that was in the Pac-12 North race up until the final week. That's the good side of college football. The bad side is the playoff, which led to Kirk Herbstreit making his rants and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think he realizes that the overemphasis on the playoff is why players are opting out of bowls, which, for the record, I respect any player's decision. I totally understand it. We saw firsthand with Matt Corral in the Sugar Bowl why players opt out and why no one should be blaming anyone. I mean, maybe there isn't a right answer with opt-outs. It's good that players like Matt Corral play, and it's good that players like Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker opt out. So that's my little soapbox, and that's it.
And also, if you haven't listened to the Kirk Herbstreit follow-up interview with Big Cat, on PMT, it's something to listen to because it clarifies. I mean, poor Kirk got 2.5, 3 hours of sleep flying from Miami all the way to Pasadena to do College Game Day the next morning. ESPN really put him through the ringer there. But he's not saying that players don't love football anymore. That's not at all what he was saying, right? But I love that everyone's like, oh, expand the playoff when do you really want 6 more of these games every year, right? It really in ways devalues other bowl games. I don't think the Rose Bowl should ever be a consolation prize, and it now is. Now I'm all for keeping the playoff. Hey, we got what we wanted. We got the 2 best teams, right? It's clearly Alabama and Georgia, and we wouldn't have gotten that in the old BCS system. The SEC championship would have been a playoff game in essence. And then we would have gotten Michigan, Alabama in the national championship, most likely under the BCS, right? So, hey, we got what we wanted. No one asked for a committee, but we did get the 2 best teams. So, but yeah, thank goodness that the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl were as good as they were. So, and the Fiesta Bowl, by the way, gosh, Notre Dame really blowing the lead there, 49ers style, but sorry.
Yeah, not cool, man. I'm on it just this week 18, but yeah, good. I mean, good point. A lot to soak in bowl season, of course. We're sad that it's over. Last night, I kind of went out with a whimper with the Texas Bowl, a very randomly placed Texas Bowl at Tuesday at 9:00 Eastern. I really don't know
love
what to say
tier 3 bowl games on 9 Eastern on a Tuesday? Isn't it great?
It's good. It's just weird. I don't know why they put it on that date.
Didn't it used to be back in the day, when we were growing up, the GoDaddy Bowl would be on January 5th, and there's always some random low tier bowl game as one last, before we head on to the college football off season. So
yeah,
it was call it the off season with how entertaining NSD is now in February.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shoot, I always forget about the early signing period happening during the bowl games. It's really a lot to take in. But again, like you said, not really an off season with all the recruiting going on too. Which, I mean, how many do they have a regular national signing day too?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
in
wow.
February is the big one. Early signing day is exactly that. It's just early. So
Okay, well, there you have it. So yeah, lots to take in the coming days. All-Star games, which we'll cover National Signing Day, but we're not here for that today. There is one huge award yet to be given out, and if you listened or watched us in the spring, then you would know about the Walter Payton and the Buck Buchanan Awards. And they're voting a little primer on the voting. So what they do it a little bit differently than the Heisman voting. Is they have a huge list of finalists. Both awards do. I think about 25 finalists are released. And then from there, they release the voting from number 25 all the way up to number 4. And from there, they have 3 sort of, I guess, final finalists. I don't know what word to really make it, but they have 3 candidates that are whittled down through the voting, and they reveal the rest of the voting the night before, or I guess the evening before the FCS title game. So that's what we're talking about here. And we got some familiar faces and some new faces in both awards. But Jackson, before we kick off with the players, you have anything to kick us off with?
I do not. I just wish we could know if anyone got voted for or not voted for because they're a jerk. I think that's important to know.
Yeah,
If you don't know, I'm referencing Aaron Rodgers and a Chicago reporter who's not voting for Aaron Rodgers for MVP because he's quote unquote a jerk. Which, I mean, you say what you will, but I mean he's a really good player. So
yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's on the field too, but it's always funny the whole character issue when it comes to the Heisman, because there's questions about Jameis Winston when he stole crab legs. Yeah, whatever. Johnny Rodgers in '71, I think he was the first guy that had a questionable sort of pass, and I think he was arrested for something. The great Johnny Rodgers in Nebraska, but that was something that they overlooked, and he's an upstanding citizen, to say the least. So yeah, so after that, I guess with that in mind, sorry, brief roadmap there. Let's start with the Walter Payton Award too on offense. Yeah, actually, let's start with Buck Buchanan, because the offense, I think that carries it. So we'll start with Buck Buchanan. 3 candidates, and I think this one was hard for me to tell who the front runner is, honestly, because you have 2 guys that you have 3 guys really that have been so much for their defense, and I know that's sort of a generic statement with it being a player of the year award, but these guys, I mean, they've been absolute game breakers in all their own rights.
yeah, absolutely. All of them have had tremendous seasons. I know I have one in particular that I'm pretty confident will win, and we'll go over that. But man, who do you want to go over first? Do you want to go? Let's start off with someone in the state of Montana, right? If you don't already know, we've got a linebacker from Montana State and a linebacker from Montana, both being finalists. We'll start off with Troy Anderson, the linebacker from Montana State. He's not only a linebacker, he's played running back, he's played quarterback, outside linebacker, inside linebacker. He's deservedly so the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year. 111 tackles, 50 of 7 of them being solo tackles. Almost 10 TFLs at 9.5, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, a few PBUs, fumble recovery, a touchdown. I mean, he's got at least one of everything, right? Only 46 players at the FBS level have had 100 plus tackles on the year. I don't know how many of them have had multiple TFLs, interceptions, and PBUs too. Troy can do it all. He makes jump passes like Tebow while wearing number 15. He makes great backfield reads to make TFLs. Over 100 tackles, like I mentioned. Not to mention he's smart. He's his high school valedictorian as well. So smart dude. I mean, Troy Anderson's got it all.
Absolutely. And something that astonished me is Troy Anderson is all over the record books from the quarterback position at Montana State. He's a bit of a Joel Lanning of Bozeman, Montana, if you remember Joel Lanning from Iowa State back in 2017. But he holds the record for most rush yards in the game for a quarterback. 3rd best single season output for any player in Montana State history. Was first team All Big Sky in 2018 at quarterback. Passing the ball wasn't too much to write home to mother about. Only had 1,195 passing yards and 3 touchdowns in 2018 and 7 picks. But running the ball, man, geez, absolutely sensational running the ball. But then he became a linebacker, and he is fit in very well there too. Like you said, Jackson, just a great year. I picked out some of his best his performances against some of the best teams he's played, against Wyoming and Levi. and Levi Smith. He had 11 tackles. Of course, we saw Levi Smith run wild in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Montana, he had 10 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 interception. Now, Montana State did lose that game 29-10, which might be a knock against Pat O'Connell, the other linebacker from Montana. That's a finalist. And then against Eastern Washington, really a signature performance. He had 15 tackles and half a TFL in an upset at the time against Eastern Washington. So very strong performances. The one knock I do see is the head-to-head against Montana, which might place him below Pat O'Connell. But otherwise, you have that Eastern Washington performance. It's really a signature performance against Eric Barrier, who we're going to be talking about a lot later on in this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Troy Anderson has had a phenomenal season. Like you said, he's playing on both sides of the ball. I mean, not so much anymore, obviously, right? But I saw one run looking up highlights of him. I mean, he looked like Derrick Henry out there. I mean, like he is just, I mean, he's a linebacker, right? So he's a power, just absolutely phenomenal season. And I mean, deservedly so. He's in the top 3 for this. Moving on, we'll go to Isaiah Land, the linebacker from Florida A&M. He leads the FCS in TFLs and sacks. If you might ask, who was the leader of that last year? Jordan Lewis, the Buck Buchanan winner last year, was also the sack and TFL leader. He ended up winning the whole thing. On the season, 43 tackles, so obviously not as many as Troy Anderson. He makes up for that with 25 and a half being of them being TFLs. Few pass breakups and forced fumbles. Also, Cincinnati is not the only team to make playoff history. FAMU was the first SWAC team to make the FCS playoffs since 1997. So, hey, great stuff there. And Isaiah Land is definitely the leader of that team.
Yeah, I mean Isaiah Land. I'm gonna go with the nickname for this one. I'm gonna give Aiden Hutchinson a nickname. I'm gonna call Aiden Hutchinson the Isaiah Land of Ann Arbor, because he's not putting up numbers like 25 tackles for a loss, 19 sacks. Interestingly enough, I do believe that these stats are only accounted for before the playoffs, because I think in early December the voting came out, because if you look at his stats against Southeastern Louisiana, he almost had no stats against Cole Kelly and company. Cole Kelly, who also talked about I guess I'm giving spoilers left and right if you haven't looked at the finalist list. But he did absolutely nothing, like almost no stats. I think he had 1 quarterback hit, and that's it that he had against Southeastern Louisiana. That's not factored in the voting, I don't think. But just, I mean, I look at Isaiah Land, it's like, how do you ignore 25 tackles for a loss? And I think this would be a much easier race if Florida A&M beat Jackson State in the Orange Blossom Classic, which ended up, oddly enough, deciding the SWAC East in the first game of the season. I don't think that's ever happened where the first game that both teams played was a tiebreaker. I haven't seen that happen in college football, but if they win and go to the Celebration Bowl, I can imagine we're singing the praises of Isaiah Land in a really landslide race for the Buck Buchanan Award.
Yeah, absolutely. And I already think he's probably the front runner for this, being so productive in the backfield, or the opponent's backfield, right? But man, I mean, if he was doing that in the Celebration Bowl, that would be amazing stuff. He would be the slam dunk winner, I feel like. We'll go ahead and move on to Pat O'Connell, the linebacker from Montana. We've already talked about. Omar, Alabama has won 3 Heisman since 2015. If O'Connell wins, Montana will have 3 Buck Buchanans since 2015. He's not shy to bright lights and big moments either. He played in 5 state title games in high school, 3 football, 1 basketball, 1 baseball. On the season, 91 tackles, almost 20 TFLs, 13 of which were sacks, 5 quarterback hurries, 3 forced fumbles, and a touchdown, by the way. He has 7 tackles in all but 1 game. He's uber reliable. O'Connell has had a heck of a season, and I mean, he definitely has a shot at this award as well.
And it's funny too with Pat O'Connell too, because you want to look at between O'Connell and Anderson, you want to look at the dichotomy between whether you look at signature performances against elite FCS programs and signature performances against FBS programs, because O'Connell has a signature performance against Washington with 10 tackles, 3 TFLs, and 2 sacks against Washington's offense in week 1. And then Montana State, he performed well, with 11 tackles, 1.5 TFLs, which were 1.5 sacks. Against Eastern Washington, did not have as good a game as Troy Anderson did, only had 8 tackles and 0.5 TFLs. But I think the one thing is with O'Connell is he has a balance between tackles and TFLs, something you don't exactly see with Land. And I guess something you kind of don't really see in terms of Anderson with tackles for a loss. So this one could be hard to tell, honestly. You're muted, Jackson.
I was just gonna say, only 6 less TFLs and over double the number of tackles as Isaiah Land. So the production is like all over the place, right? So, and TFLs are a lot more fun, right? You get a lot more attention for that than you do tackles. It's nice to have a little bit of both, though.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really hard to tell. It's like if I forget who the finalists were last year for the Walter, or excuse me, last spring for the Walter Payton Award. I'll have to pull that up really quick, but it depends what the voters want. The voters want another pass rusher to win it, like they had Jordan Lewis last year, then Land's the answer. But if they want a sort of ball hawking middle linebacker, either Troy Anderson or Pat O'Connell's the answer here. So it's really hard to tell what the voters will want this year.
Yeah, it is hard to tell. But ideally, like, we have them, not just looking at stats, but they're actually able to, do a deep dive on the film and stuff like that, right? But all of these guys have been greatly productive. If any of these guys won it, I think we could say that, they deserved it, right? Because they've all had great seasons. Omar, I'll just have you predict which one do you think is gonna take home the award.
I think honestly it's going to come down. So the order I have it coming down as, I actually have it's tough. It's tough for me not to pick Land, but I feel like Montana's got the tradition of defensive players. I got O'Connell edging Land barely, and I can go either way with that one, honestly. Yeah, I got
We've
O'Connell
got the same
Land.
top two. I'm gonna go with Land slightly above O'Connell, opposite way. Land, not only is he the leader in TFLs and sacks, right? They made the playoffs. There's so much, it's a good thing, right? But so much love for HBCUs right now. I feel like it's hopefully really shined a light on Florida A&M as well. Would love to see Land end up taking it home. O'Connell has had, like you said, they have the tradition at Montana, and he's had such a productive season. He's been so consistent. Would love to see him win it too. Obviously, only one can take it home. I think it'll be one of those two. Troy Anderson, I mean, gosh, if there was a most player award in FCS, right, man, that would be all his. So.
Yeah, and I agree. It's hard to tell, honestly, too. And I think almost said FIU. I think FAMU having a playoff year really helps Land's case out here, but it's so close to tell. It's not. I guess it's not like last year where, like, honestly or last spring where, like, honestly we looked at it and it's like, okay, yeah, I think Jordan Lewis is going to take this, and I'm struggling to find the spring candidate list, but yeah, like, it's not like that like last year. This is a really close race and it's really hard to tell, but it should be fun to see who comes out on top, honestly. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a lot of fun to see who ends up taking it home at the banquet in Frisco. But yeah, and that's not the only one we've got. We got the Walter Payton Award too that's being given out.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this one too, you have some real heavyweight names here. You got the 3 finalists.
Just to specify real quick, not the Man of the Year award. Okay, we're not talking about that one. Talking about the FCS Best Offensive Player, offensive Heisman, basically at the FCS level. So just to clarify.
Yeah. Okay. Really quick too before we go on. So the three main finalists last year for the Buck Buchanan last spring was Jordan Lewis, Colby Campbell, and Stone Snyder. Colby Campbell I think he set the record for tackles in the game against Davidson. So that was his claim to fame. But that Presbyterian team was not really that good. And then Stone Snyder of VMI had great stats, but not quite as dominant as Jordan Lewis. He had 10.9 tackles per game. In fact, I think you could argue that he wasn't the best player on that defense itself, as they had another great linebacker on that team whose name's escaping me right now. Geez, how embarrassing. But yeah, so that's just a little primer last year. So a closer race than last spring. But going on to the Walter Payton Not Man of the Year award, your 3 finalists are Eric Barrier, Cole Kelly and Quay Holmes. And honestly, the Walter Payton Award's been a quarterback award. The only non-quarterback to win it in the last 15 years is Cooper Kupp. A running back hasn't won it since 2004 or 5. Well, since the mid 2000s at least. So you can pretty much rule out Quay Holmes, as much as I hate to say, even though Quay Holmes is the lifeblood, the heart and soul of that East Tennessee State team that made a run in the playoffs this year. But it really does look like Barrier versus Kelly for this award.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is pretty much between those two. With Barrier, he came in second place last year in the voting. Frisco's going to be his last stop before the NFL draft. 67% completion percentage on the year. Just short of 4,300 yards, 40 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and about 3 rushing touchdowns and 224 rushing yards. Meanwhile, for Cole Kelly, who won it last year, by the way, and could become the third player ever to win it in consecutive seasons. 74% completion percentage, just short of 4,400 yards, 38 pass touchdowns, so 2 less than Barrier, 6 interceptions, same number, 442 rush yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. 2. Omar, I mean, both of these guys we talked about extensively in the spring. Quay Holmes, almost forgot to mention, came in 13th last year in voting. But like you said, Cooper Kupp was the last one to win it. That was a non-quarterback. Quay Holmes is good, but not Cooper Kupp good. So, man, I don't know. What do you think? You home?
Yeah, so just a fact check there. The last running back to win the Walter Payton Award was Jamal Branch, 2003, out of Colgate, the Patriot League. So yeah, I do agree that Quay Holmes isn't Cooper Kupp great in terms of stat wise, but he's had some great games. I mean, give the man some credit. 1,431 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns in the regular season, 204 receiving yards and a touchdown. Went for over 100 against Vandy. Pretty much carried East Tennessee State to victory in the de facto SoCon title game against Mercer, and then against VMI, another team that had playoff aspirations again this year. 21 carries, 161 yards for the Buccaneers, excuse me. Just a really great year for Quay Holmes, but again, it's a shame because it's like the NFL MVP, where like Jonathan Taylor is absolutely kicking butt this year, but he's not going to get considered because MVP is not a running back award. Same thing with the Walter Payton Award. With this one too, the one thing, I guess I'll go on to my pick too as I look at the stats and like my opinions. Looking at it, the Walter Payton's not averse to having back-to-back winners like the Heisman is. They've had two back-to-back winners in the past 15 years. Armani Edwards, the great quarterback from App State, and Jeremiah Briscoe from Sam Houston State. So with that being said, Kelly's stats are not only superior in terms of passing, but from a rushing perspective, the 16 rushing touchdowns of 442 net yards, and that's accounting for sacks. I mean, I really think Cole Kelly takes this one for a second straight year. And that's really a shame for Eric Berry, because Eric Berry is one of the greatest quarterbacks in FCS history. With all that he's done over the last few years, it's a consistent body of work. But I feel like it's kind of like a Deshaun Watson type thing with him, like falling short for the Heisman in 2015 against Henry and falling short in 2016 against Lamar Jackson. I do feel like this is a Deshaun Watson type situation where Barrier is a bit, he's playing in the wrong time, honestly, too. And it's a shame too, because Eastern Washington produces great quarterbacks up there. But I'm thinking Kelly wins it for a second straight year for a Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah.
Omar, are you suggesting we give a lifetime achievement award like we hated being suggested about Trevor Lawrence?
I'm not saying we do, but I'm just saying that's sometimes how the cards fall.
It absolutely is. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, no, it definitely is. It would be a shame for Barrier to go his whole career at Eastern Washington without winning it, but it sure looks like it. I think Cole Kelly is going to win it and be that, like I said, that third back-to-back player to win.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. I think my favorite stat lines too, looking at the game logs for both guys. I mean, you have a 600-yard game with 7 touchdowns for Barrier against Idaho. Absolutely amazing. You have he in the first football game, in the first college, or yes, the first football game this year, against UNLV, just that would have been his Walter Payton moment with 374 yards and 3 touchdowns against UNLV. That would have been his moment. But Cole Kelly's just been amazing. I mean, you look at his one game against FBS competition, 495 yards, 3 touchdowns, added 42 rushing yards against Louisiana Tech, and then he had an absolutely Patrick Mahomes like performance. I mean, we all remember that game with Patrick Mahomes against Baker Mayfield, where he had I think over 800 total yards. Kelly had 647 passing yards and 50 rushing yards against Incarnate Word against Cameron Ward and company. So just amazing stat lines from these two quarterbacks, and it's a shame that only one of these quarterbacks can win.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are so many deserving guys from a lot of teams, but particularly these 6 guys we've talked about. And Quay Holmes, hey, we want to give love to Quay Holmes. It's just honestly just not very realistic because his stats are excellent. They're just not like mind-bogglingly high, right? So it's going to be tough to give it to him, especially, I mean, forgetting on quarterback, like just a running back because it's been so long. So it's been, I mean, almost 2 decades, right? And Quay Holmes just doesn't seem to have the stats to break that streak. But yeah, Cole Kelly, Eric Berry, both phenomenal seasons. And Cole Kelly, I think the rushing touchdowns really give him the edge, though.
And just a brief aside here, you'll be seeing Cole Kelly in the Hula Bowl, and he just accepted an invite to the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl next the past or a couple of days ago. Excuse me. You'll see Quay Holmes. He was one of the first players to accept a bid to the Hula Bowl. So you'll be seeing these guys in the All-Star circuits as you should, and it'll be fun for them. It'll be fun to see them play against college football's best competition in those games. But yeah, like you said, maybe one year we'll see a running back win it again. But I don't think this is a year for it, honestly.
As a little insurance policy, go ahead and draft Quay Holmes in your fantasy league next year.
Yeah, no, he catches the ball well out of the backfield. He runs the ball. Of course, he's a workhorse, so he'll make a roster, I think. And he also returns kicks too. He returned kicks in the spring, and was very good at it too. So an NFL team will find use for Quay Holmes.
If he's half as good as Cooper Kupp, we're good.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, no, Quay Holmes, keep an eye on it too. I hope he gets drafted too. But if he's undrafted, that's a steal for some team. Yeah, I mean FCS running backs can play. I mean Chase Edmonds from Fordham from the Patriot League, great back right there too. So yeah, I believe that covers all that we have for the award ceremony this weekend. I guess we'll move on to the actual game being played, North Dakota State versus Montana State. That game will be on ESPN2 at noon, and it's kind of a shame because looking at it, ESPN's dedicated a whole bunch of programming. I think they have a basketball game, and they have I think they have NFL Countdown before a doubleheader Saturday. And then ABC, for whatever reason, has paid programming for 3 hours when in past years they've aired the championship game on ABC. So it's really a shame that the game's not on ABC or ESPN, but ESPN2 at noon Eastern. I think it's going to be just a knockdown, drag-out defensive affair, Jackson. And as Fruit comes out on top, I think it's tough for me to tell, but I think something tells me inside that North Dakota State wants blood after last year's failure. But yeah, I think it'll be a very close defensive struggle.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully so. All we can hope for is a good game, right? But North Dakota State, I'm sure, is out for it next year after, anything less than winning the title is not good enough for them, for sure.
So they have it again, 12 Eastern, ESPN2 in Frisco, the field of smoothies, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so I guess moving on to our last topic. So we didn't really cover the fallout from the Heisman Trophy ceremony, just being away for so long. And really, there's not much else to say about it. We both think that Bryce Young was the right guy to win it. But I think an interesting proposition is if Tank Bigsby stays in bounds, then I think the Heisman is Aiden Hutchinson's from the way the voting looks like, because people are saying that Bryce Young's Heisman moment was his game tying drive against Auburn, and you look at it, that was mostly enabled because Auburn went out of bounds on the second and short play and got stuffed on third down, saving Alabama a bunch of time. And they got the ball back with I think about like 148 and a timeout or something like that. But if Tank Bigsby stays in bounds, an extra 40 seconds runs off the clock, and then Bama has to drive that much, and maybe it's Aiden Hutchinson's Heisman. So I just want to know your thoughts on the Heisman race.
Of the four that went, I think Bryce Young is the right move. Will Anderson, I think, might have been the best player in college football all year, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like if you had Aiden Hutchinson there, I feel like you had to have Will Anderson there too. But that's just like that's I mean, another Heisman controversy, honestly. Maybe we'll get it right next year with all the finalists too. But yeah, it was good to see some new faces from new schools. Kenny Pickett from Pitt. I think he's their first Heisman finalist since Larry Fitzgerald. And before that, the last one I think was like Dan Marino back in the early 80s. So yeah, great to see some new faces there from new schools. But overall, I think the right guy won the award, honestly. And it's just funny to think in terms of what ifs, though, with that final drive too, because this Heisman race was an uneventful Heisman race, honestly. If we're being honest, much like a 2006, really, where there wasn't much suspense surrounding it. 2006, of course, you had Troy Smith and Ohio State going wire to wire. But I mean, this year we had Alabama dominant for most of the year, and there really wasn't a front runner for most of this race. But I think it was interesting too. I would have thought that Kenny Pickett would have came in second, but Aiden Hutchinson coming in second in the race, very interesting too. Almost like I think Steve Entman came in second in 91 as well. So yeah, there's our little Heisman primer. Jackson, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really, man. I mean, hey, Aiden Hutchinson struggled against Georgia a lot, which I mean, in hindsight would have been pretty, insightful, I feel like. But man, I mean, those were four excellent college football players, probably four first round picks too.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. So really not much else to debate there, really discuss there. I mean, we'll see. We have some early candidates too. We'll have to look at the early betting odds for the Heisman. I'm gonna say it right here. Malik Cunningham is a dark horse for the Heisman, in my opinion. He's a Lamar 2.0, just as good as Lamar Jackson it was in college, I think. So yeah, we'll see in the coming months who the prognosticators have as their early Heisman favorites. One more word before we go. John Chenal of Wisconsin won the coveted Loman Trophy, given out by PFT and Big Cat, and that is much to my chagrin, as Jacoby Buchanan I think should have won it back-to-back times from Army. But I digress. John Chenal, first-time winner. Congratulations for the most prestigious award in college football, the Lowman Trophy.
Yeah, I think we all saw the video with Big Cat, right, presenting the Loman Trophy, and what did he say? Blood must be shed to water the tree of glory, I believe, and the Loman Trophy winner is that. So yeah, no, that was awesome stuff.
Yeah, but we'll see who wins at Loman next year. Something tells me that Jacoby Buchanan will be back in the talks this year or next year, but it should be fun to see. I think that about wraps up everything we have for this pre-Walter Payton and Buck Buchanan primer. Jackson, you have anything final to add?
Not that I can think of. If you made it this far, sorry, we are fostering 4 puppies, and they are just so excited about college football and the Buck Buchanan Award. So sorry for if you had to bear any squeakers, as you can hear right now, or barking. But yeah, that's tough when you live in a small 2-2 apartment, right? So yeah, but anyways, no, that's pretty much it for me. Looking forward to a weekend of NFL football, some college football in there, and Monday, of course, being the national championship game. Like I said, hey, we got what we wanted. We got the 2 best teams. Hopefully it's the same result, just a little bit more competitive up there in Indianapolis. So we'll see. It'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, and I will say that there was that scathing article about Indianapolis being an expensive city. I will say that the great city of Indianapolis. I went there this summer on a trip to a game of the Spring League, the league, the developmental league that's kind of morphing into the USFL. But the Spring League, the developmental league, went to Indianapolis, went to an empty Lucas Oil Stadium with only about 100 people. And watched a nice game. But it's a great city. Got great statues. Has the Benjamin Harrison presidential site. So I will say, any detractors to Indianapolis, give the city a chance, and especially all the Georgia and Bama fans traveling out there, just find a nice hotel a little ways out and just enjoy it all. So yeah.
Someday I'm gonna try and make it up there to go to the combine because that's the kind of nerd I am. But yeah, no, it's a nice stadium, lots of conference rooms, which is nice, right? So yeah, but it'll be good. National championship, hopefully, like I said, is competitive. You know that episode of The Office, Omar, where Michael's like, "Do you know what's at stake at this? Do you know what's at stake? 1980 jokes is what's at stake for the national championship in Indianapolis." So 1980, I said my piece. Just needed to make it in case it's the last time.
You gotta let go of the jokes sometime, man. You gotta let go sometime, man.
I probably won't, especially if they lose, man. I'm gonna laugh so hard if they lose, but we'll see.
All right, there you have it. All Georgia fans direct your hate to Jackson here. I'm not wearing a Florida shirt. This is a Tulsa shirt, Tulsa Myrtle Beach Bowl shirt. It's not. It looks orange from the screen, but don't hate me, Georgia fans. Don't put the hate to me. So
I am wearing orange and blue. I've actually got my Jordans on too. So hey.
Yeah, all
hate directed towards me.
So with that in mind, have a great triple header Sunday weekend and national championship Monday. And until next time, peace, love, and soul, everyone.